How's it going, guys? I'm Brian Beck. This is our flight scenario video for Aviation 325. We're talking about our flight from Charleston, West Virginia, KCRW to Cape May, KWWD. 316 miles is your straight line distance. We're flying in a DA-40. And yeah, we'll break it down. So we'll do the whole pilot, aircraft, environment, and external pressures. So we'll talk about the pilot first. We've got 1,500 hours. We're an instrument-rated commercial pilot. Spent a lot of time flying Skyhawks commercially in VFR weather. Not much in regards to cross-country time or actual instrument time, but they do mention that you've got a lot of time flying in marginal VFR, which, even though you don't have a whole lot of actual time, is a really good experience as far as dealing with weather and getting around and understanding what's happening around you, staying on top of it. The aircraft we're flying, it's going to be a Diamond DA-40. Now, the scenario mentions that most of our time, like a good 90% of it, I think, is in a Skyhawk. And we have about 8 hours in a DA-40 that we checked out in last year. Does that mean you're current in that aircraft? No. Is the performance significantly different than a Skyhawk? Yeah, a little bit. It's a little faster. It's a little slipperier. Your approach speeds are going to be higher. Your cruise speeds are going to be a lot higher. Not too much of a concern. I might consider going on a quick little checkout flight with the CFI that operates that aircraft. It's a rental. So I assume there's a CFI tied to it somehow. I might want to go, take a couple laps around the pattern, make sure I still know how to land a low wing if I've been flying a Skyhawk for the last couple of years. The other primary concern with this aircraft is it's got much different avionics than we're used to. The scenario doesn't break down what kind of Skyhawk, if it's an SP or an R with a G1000, but it does say the DA-40 has a G1000 panel, which, if you only have 8 hours flying on glass, you're probably, and it was a year ago, you're going to want to refamiliarize yourself with how those avionics work. Which, if you've got an iPad, which as a commercial pilot you probably do, you can download one of the G1000 emulator and just plug away on it for a few hours and refamiliarize yourself. Pretty quick and cheap and easy to get familiar with those avionics. They mentioned that the aircraft is up to date on maintenance. It just had a fresh oil change, so we shouldn't have any concerns with that. Not terribly worried about, an engine going out or something like that, like we were with the last one, although there are a couple of water crossings we're going to have to deal with on this route. And so, yeah, let's jump into that. The weather for the route is supposed to be VFR, although it does mention that conditions are expected to get worse the following day. So we can expect that if this is going to be a long flight, we might see conditions starting to get worse. We also mentioned that it's hot and it's humid, which is always ripe for cumulus layers to pop up out of nowhere when you didn't expect them to be there. You pop up thunderstorms and stuff like that. So we can expect to be doing some minor diversion. If we're really going to do this truly VFR, we're going to expect to be doing some left-right diversions for weather that pops up along our route. Got a lot of practice flying marginal VFR, so that shouldn't be too much of an ADM issue for us. The route itself. Okay, so 316 miles is your straight line distance, but if anybody looked at me and said, hey, do you want to go fly VFR through the Washington, D.C. SFRA, I'm going to say no. So the route I've chosen, let's see if we can make it out on here a little bit. We're going way down south of the SFRA here. I'm going, goodness, sorry, let me look this up. Okay, so we're going south of all the restricted airspace. I'm sorry, this is hard to make out on here. A lot of your restricted airspace is up around here. All this orange in here is stuff you want to stay out of, especially if you're VFR. And so the route I've chosen takes us up along the island chain up the east coast. So there's a few water crossings, and the reason I chose this route specifically is that none of these crossings are any more than 10 miles in length themselves. There's lots of VORs we can use, and plenty of airports we're going to fly right over in case we decide we need to land for fuel. The aircraft should have plenty long enough legs to make this flight in one jump. Should take, let's see, just about 3 hours. And we should burn about 32 gallons of fuel. That'll leave us about an hour and a half of reserves. If we have to do too much deviation for weather, then we might consider stopping around Richmond for fuel. And obviously, if we're having to go around weather, we're going to want to stop and look at the weather and maybe consider filing IFR for the rest of it or just stopping. Okay. So the purpose behind this route is there's no restricted airspace you're going to fly through. You don't need clearance to fly through any of it. We're going to be up and over the Charlie, up and over all the terrain. We're going to be high enough to avoid any issues with water crossings. I planned for 9,000 feet. Of course, that's going to vary based on your winds aloft, but that's going to keep you well over the Allegheny Mountains that are just on the east side of Yeager where we're taking off. And definitely high enough to cross a 10-mile stretch of water if the engine does fail halfway over. All right, external pressures for this. So we're going on a family vacation that we've been looking forward to all summer long. Sounds exciting. Sounds like something you don't want to miss. The weather for that trip is supposed to be good, but as it gets worse, and it sounds like it probably will, looking at the little bits that they've given us, you're going to want to make sure you plan ahead, plan for your contingencies. What happens if you need to stop in Virginia or on some island on the East Coast? What if you need to stop there? Pick a couple places along your route that have rental cars that you can still get to where you're going and leave the airplane behind, maybe get it hangared for the week while you're on your trip with your family. That's a hard decision to make as a pilot somewhere. I mean, all of us, we really want to get there and get the job done, complete the mission. But planning those contingencies before you take off is always a good idea. It really helps out with your decision making when things are getting worse. You already know, okay, I'm gonna go here if this happens, or this weather degrades or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I would take the flight. It's supposed to be VFR weather. I would expect it to not be VFR weather, and I would just plan around it. But that's it. Thank you.